In the shadowed halls of Eldermire, love was born where it never should have been. Lady Seraphine, a noblewoman bound to duty, and Kael, a soldier scarred by war, found their hearts tangled in secret. Their whispers of devotion echoed in candlelit corridors, fragile against the storm of betrayal and envy that prowled the castle walls. This is no tale of gentle endings. It is a story where love burns bright, only to be torn apart by fate's cruel hand. Listen and let your heart be shattered by the tragic love of Seraphine and Kael. The night had settled heavy upon Eldermire Castle. Its towers loomed against the silver wash of the moon, and the wind carried the low groan of old stones. Within those walls, where duty bound each soul like chains of iron, Lady Seraphine moved quietly through a side corridor. Her steps light, yet her heart thundering. Her life was not her own. Since birth, she had been promised to Lord Alaric, a man of wealth and cruel temper. Yet fate, capricious and unyielding, had led her eyes to another. Kael, a soldier in Alaric's service, bore scars both upon his flesh and deep within his soul. He had returned from war not with triumph, but with shadows in his gaze. Where others turned away from his silence, Seraphine lingered. She saw not the hardened soldier, but the broken man beneath, and in her pity grew a dangerous seed love. It was in the chapel, long abandoned by priests, that their hearts first dared to speak. Candles burned low, their flames flickering as though afraid of the secrets whispered there. "You should not be here." Kael's voice was rough, each word heavy with fear. "If they find us, let them find ashes before they find my heart cold," Seraphine answered, her eyes shining. "What is a life lived in chains if not a slow death?" Kael looked upon her as though she were the only light left in his broken world. He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers trembling. "If I touch you, I bind us both to ruin. And if you do not," she whispered, "then we are ruined still." Their lips met in silence, the chapel bearing witness to a kiss that would doom them both. For love, when it blooms in forbidden soil, draws every eye of fate to its petals. Days turned to weeks, and their meetings multiplied. In hidden corners, behind tapestries, beneath the stars upon the castle battlements, they dreamed of freedom. Yet freedom was a fragile dream in Eldermire. Lord Alaric, sharp of wit and sharper of suspicion, soon saw the glow upon Seraphine's cheeks and the way her gaze strayed when Kael entered a hall. It was envy that lit his heart ablaze. To be denied a woman promised to him was wound enough, but to lose her to a soldier, one he considered less than dirt, was an insult carved too deep. One evening, Alaric summoned Kael to the great hall under pretense of reward. The torches crackled, their flames throwing shadows long upon the stone floor. At the dais, Alaric sat with his goblet raised, his eyes cold. "You have served me well, soldier," he said, his tone sweetened with poison. "And I have thought of a gift to match your loyalty." Kael bowed, though unease knotted his chest. He felt the eyes of courtiers watching, whispering. "A gift most rare," Alaric continued, "a truth, that you should know how deep I hold my bride to be." The words fell heavy, and Kael's blood ran cold. He knew then that their secret was no longer theirs. The great hall of Eldermire rang with silence, broken only by the hiss of torches. Kael stood in the center, a lone figure surrounded by lords and ladies who stared with eager eyes. He felt as though he were a stag placed before the hounds. Lord Alaric rose from his chair. His goblet clattered as he set it down, the wine within dark as blood. "You see, Kael, loyalty is not only measured on the field of battle," he said, his voice smooth. "It is measured in how one honors his master's home, his bride, his future." A murmur passed through the hall. Seraphine sat nearby, her hands clutched tightly in her lap. She dared not meet Kael's eyes, though her heart ached to shield him. Alaric's gaze sharpened, cutting through the crowd until it found Kael. "Tell me, soldier, what warmth have you stolen that does not belong to you?" Kael's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, yet every word felt like a blade that would strike Seraphine. Silence stretched. The Lord's smile was cruel. Ah, then silence is truth enough. He stepped closer, his rings glinting in the firelight. Do you know what becomes of thieves in Eldermire, Kael? They lose what they value most. A low gasp spread through the court. Seraphine rose suddenly, unable to bear it. Enough, my lord, she cried, her voice trembling yet fierce. If there is guilt, lay it upon me, for I have given it freely. He has stolen nothing. It is my heart I offered him. The hall erupted in whispers, scandal flowing like wildfire. Alaric turned slowly, his face pale with fury. His hands curled to fists. You dare shame me before my court? Before the bloodline of Eldermire? Seraphine lifted her chin, though her knees shook. Better shame than a loveless chain. I would rather be broken in truth than gilded in lies. Kael's breath caught. Pride warred with dread inside him. He stepped forward, standing at her side, though the world sought to tear them apart. If punishment must come, let it fall upon me, he said, his voice firm. Spare her, for she is guiltless in my eyes. Alaric's laughter echoed harsh against the stone walls. Oh, noble words. You think your sacrifice shields her? No, soldier, it damns you both. He motioned sharply to the guards. Seize him. Let the dungeons teach him what it means to covet what belongs to another. Steel clattered as armored men closed in. Seraphine rushed forward, but Alaric caught her arm in a bruising grip. And you, my lady, will watch. You will see what your defiance costs. Kael struggled against the guards, his voice rising above the chaos. Seraphine, do not let him break you. Her tears fell hot and unyielding, but her spirit did not falter. I will never forsake you, Kael, she cried. Yet the doors closed between them, the sound like a tomb ceiling. In the darkness of Eldermire, love had declared itself openly, and now it would be hunted without mercy. Well. Looks like our little spy managed to get some dirt on those two lovebirds. Yes, this is good. This is very good. Tell me, my spider, how did they look? How did they act? Oh, so they looked like they had found solace in each other's company? You said they looked happy. Huh. For how long, Their happiness is a fragile thing, much like a spider's web glistening with morning dew. One wrong move, and it will shatter into 1,000 pieces. Alaric paces back and forth across his study, his boots echoing on the rich carpet as he relives the scene through his spy's eyes. Beautiful, just beautiful. Watching them brought him a perverse joy, a twisted pleasure. He had thought the dungeon a clever choice, a place to break them, to make them beg for mercy. But they found happiness there. How infuriating. He stops pacing and fixes his gaze on the silver tray holding the ruby ring that the little princess used to bribe the guard. Such a precious jewel, and for what? A measly loaf of bread and a flagon of water. Does she think she can buy her way out of this? Out of everything? Did her precious knight even know the value of that ring? He doubts it. A knock at the door pulls him from his thoughts. Enter. His brother stands framed in the doorway, his expression unreadable as always. Have you seen the princess? I have seen her, yes. She is well. Alaric carefully sets the tray down, his fingers drumming a staccato beat against the wood. She visits the knight again tonight, no doubt, as if he could not see the love shining from her every pore. She might as well have painted a target on his chest with how obvious she is. Marius says nothing, but his lips twitch ever so slightly, like the ghost of a smile. Is he amused? Is he mocking him? As always, he cannot tell with that brother of his. Do you mock me? I mock you? No, brother. I am merely curious. Curious how you have let this girl turn your fortress into a playground. Do you not think it beneath you to be trifled with? To be mocked? Alaric stands up, his chair scraping back from the table. He stalks toward his brother, his face inches from Marius's. Do not question my methods. You would not have meddle in your war if I did not know what I am doing. He pushes past Marius and strides toward the door. She has become a pawn in our game, a prize to be won. I will use her, break her, mold her to my purpose. And then I will decide her fate. Marius watches him go, his eyes gleaming with something cold and hard. What purpose could Alaric possibly have for the princess? What use could he have for someone as flighty and frivolous as Seraphine? Then it hits him. His eyes widen in understanding. So that is why Alaric is letting her play at being a heroine? He is biding his time, waiting for the moment when he can strike the decisive blow. Seraphine is nothing but a bargaining chip in the Game of Thrones. Once the king is dead, she will be offered up to cement an alliance, to buy favor, or perhaps to pay for betrayal. In the end, she is just another piece on the board. As dawn breaks, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Seraphine slips out of the castle once more. She moves like a shadow, her presence unnoticed, her mission unwavering. Each step takes her closer to Kael, closer to the one thing that gives meaning to her existence. Her love, he is her strength, he is her reason. She reaches the dungeon and slides down the cold stone steps, ignoring the gnawing fear in her gut. The sight that greets her is enough to send shivers down her spine. Kael hangs suspended in midair, suspended between life and death. His bruised body is a testament to the torture he has endured. But it is his eyes, those haunted, lifeless eyes, that tear at her soul. His legs are gone, replaced by a noose and a hangman's black bag. Eldermire Castle loomed against the bruised sky, a monument of stone and shadow. Within its cold embrace, a prisoner stirred, his name a whisper on the wind, Kael. Chains bit into his wrists and ankles, a stark reminder of his captivity. Yet his spirit remained unbroken. Dawn was not yet, but his thoughts raced to her, Seraphine, whose love had bloomed amidst the thorns of their impossible circumstances. Had she found a way to break the bars of his prison? Or had Alaric, the cruel lord, succeeded in extinguishing the embers of their hope? Outside, the first hints of daylight touched the spires of Eldermire, painting them gold. The castle awoke with a yawn, stretching towards the sun. But in the depths of its dungeons, Kael remained lost in dreams of Seraphine. Suddenly, a sound sliced through the gloom, the scrape of metal on stone. Hope flared in his chest, a beacon in the darkness. Could it be? His love had come to rescue him. A key turned in the lock, echoing in the vast chamber. The door creaked open, releasing a sliver of light into the stale darkness. From the threshold, a figure emerged, framed in the golden glow. It was Seraphine. Time seemed to stop, the only sound the pounding of Kael's heart. Her eyes met his, shining with a determination that set his soul aflame. In her hand, she held a dagger, its blade gleaming with a cold fire. Her lips moved, her voice a hushed vow in the solemn space. Kael, are you ready? Ready for what? The question hung unspoken between them. But in the glint of her eyes and the set of her jaw, he found his answer. This was no moment for hesitation. Kael squared his shoulders, meeting her gaze unflinchingly. Ready, he breathed, the word of prayer on his lips. The dungeon walls echoed with the scrape of metal as Seraphine tested the chains that bound him. Each link she touched seemed to sing with their shared sorrow. Finally, her nimble fingers found purchase. With a grunt, she began to work, her brow furrowed in concentration. Kael watched, a mixture of awe and apprehension in his eyes. The silence deepened, broken only by the soft clink of metal. Then at last, a chain fell away, hitting the floor with a metallic clang. Another followed, and then another until Kael stood unbound, his legs stiff from days of confinement. Relief washed over Seraphine, but it was short-lived. Their stolen moments together could not last long. The castle's many eyes were ever watchful, waiting for a stumble, a misstep that might betray their secret. She pressed the dagger into his palm, its weight a tangible promise of their fate. His hand closed around it, his fingers tracing the cold steel. He turned to her, his gaze intense. In that unspoken exchange, their love story reached its crescendo. There would be no long goodbye, no promises of a reunion veiled in uncertainty. They had but a fleeting instant, and within that moment, they chose defiance. As the sun climbed higher, bathing Eldermire in its golden light, Kael and Seraphine slipped out of the castle. Hand in hand, they vanished into the sprawling woods that lay beyond, becoming one with the whispering trees and the songs of freedom. Yet even as they fled, the shadow of Eldermire loomed large, a constant reminder of the price of their love. For Alaric, the cruel lord of Eldermire, had not relinquished his claim. The hunt had begun, and he would not rest until his prey was caught. Little did he know that in that stolen hour, Kael and Seraphine had already rewritten their fate. Theirs was a love born in the crucible of impossible odds, and it would not be so easily extinguished. The woods echoed with their laughter, mingling with the wind, whispering tales of their daring escape. But the happiness was fragile, like a butterfly pinned beneath a stone. They knew the relentless Alaric would soon be upon them, eager to crush their burgeoning freedom. The trees thinned, revealing a clearing bathed in sunlight. In the center stood a weathered cottage, its windows dark and welcoming. Hope flickered in Seraphine's chest. Perhaps here, in this secluded haven, they might find respite, a moment's peace from the looming shadow of their pursuer. Yet even as they stepped into the clearing, the illusion shattered. A figure emerged from the cottage, his face hidden beneath the hood of his cloak. But Seraphine recognized the set of his shoulders, the way he held himself. With a jolt, she realized she wasn't dealing with just one hunter. In fact, standing before her was the very person she had hoped to evade, Alaric, the Lord of Eldermire. His presence as imposing and inescapable as the castle walls they had fled. His eyes, hard and cold, swept over them, lingering on the dagger clutched in Kael's hand. A cruel smile touched his lips, revealing the glint of triumph in his eyes. The game was up. They had been trapped, cornered like wild animals. But even in the face of defeat, their spirits remained unbroken. Love and defiance burned bright within them, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead. In the shadowed depths of Eldermire Castle, where darkness intertwined with secrets, the key turned with a groan of rust, and Kael's chains fell heavy to the stone floor. Slowly he stood, his limbs stiff from weeks of captivity, yet his spirit rekindled by Seraphine's fire. For the first time since his capture, he held her fully, his arms wrapped around her trembling frame. "Seraphine," he whispered into her hair, his voice hoarse with disuse, "you risk your soul for me." "If we are caught," she silenced him with her lips. The kiss was fierce, urgent, born of fear and devotion. When she pulled away, her eyes gleamed with resolve. "If death is the price, let us pay it together, not apart." Kael's chest swelled with both love and sorrow. "Then come," he murmured, grasping her hand. "Let us steal our moment before fate steals it from us." Together, they slipped into the winding passages of Eldermire. The castle, once his prison, now became their ally, guiding them towards freedom. Shadows danced around them, their only allies in the silent halls. Seraphine led him through the lower corridors, where the stones were damp and moss crept thick, to a hidden door that opened onto the cliffs beyond the castle. The maid's theft had been precise. The gate swung wide at Seraphine's touch. The night air rushed against them, wild and cold. Stars shone above like distant candles, and the sea roared far below, crashing against jagged rock. For a moment, they were no longer prisoner and lady, but two souls unchained beneath the heavens. "I have no kingdom," Kael said, drawing her close. "No riches to give you. Only this broken body and a heart that is yours." Seraphine's tears shimmered in the starlight. "And I would trade all the wealth of Eldermire for just that. I ask for nothing more." They made their way along the cliffs to a small cave hidden in shadow. There, with only the stars as witnesses and the waves as hymn, they spoke the vows their world had denied them. Hands clasped, foreheads touching, they poured out their love, a torrent held back no longer by duty or deceit. Before God and the sea, Seraphine whispered, "I bind myself to you." "And I to you," Kael vowed, his voice trembling with passion. "No lord, no chain, no grave shall break this bond." In that cave, love burned bright against the dark. They held each other through the night, speaking of dreams they would never see, a cottage beyond the woods, children with her eyes and his courage, a life of peace far from Eldermire's cruel walls. Each word was both a promise and a farewell. As dawn crept pale upon the horizon, the sound of distant horns shattered their fragile world. Alaric's men had found the empty cell. The hunt had begun. Kael rose swiftly, swordless yet defiant, his body poised like a shield before her. "They will come for us," he murmured, knowing the stillness was a prelude to the coming storm. Seraphine clung to his arm, her voice breaking. "Then we will face them together." The first glint of steel appeared upon the cliff's edge. The echoes of boots carried nearer. The final chapter of their love was no longer a dream. It marched toward them with blades drawn. The clash of steel met boots upon stone grew louder, echoing through the dawn air. The cave, once a sanctuary, now felt like a tomb waiting to be sealed. Kael stood at its mouth, shoulders squared, though he bore no weapon but his will. "Stay behind me," he murmured, though both knew Seraphine would not. The first of Alaric's men appeared, swords gleaming with the rising sun. Behind them, banners snapped in the wind, and at their center strode Alaric himself, clad in dark armor, his expression carved from fury and pride. "There they are," he called, his voice carrying over the cliffs. The lady who spat upon her vows, and the dog who dared to dream himself her equal. Kael stepped forward, defiance burning in his eyes. "It is not dreams we share, Alaric. It is love, and no crown, no threat, no cruelty of yours will unmake it." Alaric's lips twisted. "Love is but a chain, and she will wear the one I give her." With a motion of his hand, the soldiers advanced. Kael seized a fallen blade from the ground, a relic of some past skirmish along the cliffs, and brandished it with grim resolve. Steel met steel as the guards lunged. Kael fought like a man possessed, each strike fueled by desperate devotion. For every blade that sought him, his body answered, battered but unyielding. Seraphine clung to the shadows of the cave, her heart pounding with terror and awe. "Kael," she cried as a sword grazed his arm, blood staining his sleeve. "I will not fall while you yet breathe." He shouted, turning aside another blow, but numbers told their tale. For every soldier Kael struck down, two more closed in. His strength waned, his breath came ragged, and still they pressed him back toward the cliff's edge. At last, Alaric himself drew his blade, striding forward with the confidence of one certain of victory. The soldiers parted to let him through, their prey cornered. "Your defiance ends here," Alaric said coldly, raising his sword. Kael's grip faltered, his arm trembling. Yet as the blade descended, Seraphine hurled herself between them, her cry piercing the storm of battle. "No!" Kael rose to meet Alaric's final charge, his body screaming with pain yet driven by a fire that would not die. He thrust Seraphine gently against the stone wall of the cave, his voice raw. "Stay, my love. Whatever comes, remember this, I was yours, always." But Seraphine, pale and bleeding, shook her head. "I will not stay while you face death alone." She staggered to her feet, her gown torn and stained, her eyes blazing with the last embers of her strength. Alaric's blade arced downward, a slash meant to cleave Kael where he stood. Kael raised his battered sword, the clash ringing sharp against the morning air. Sparks flew, and Kael stumbled backward, his boots skidding upon the loose stone near the cliff's edge. "You're nothing," Alaric spat, pressing forward. "A worm clothed in steel. Did you think a noble heart could be won by scars and pity?" Kael's breath tore from his chest, but his voice carried true. "No, by love, the one thing you will never hold." With a roar, Alaric swung again. Kael parried, but the force sent his weapon spinning from his grip. It clattered across the rock, out of reach. Alaric raised his sword for the killing stroke. Yet before it could fall, Seraphine hurled herself forward once more. She seized Kael's discarded blade, lifting it with trembling hands. "Then let him live," she cried, "and take me instead." Her voice cracked the air like lightning. For an instant, even Alaric faltered, caught by the sheer defiance of the woman he sought to own. But pride is a cruel master. With a snarl, he lunged at her, his steel aimed to pierce her heart. Kael moved faster than thought. He threw himself between them, the blade meant for Seraphine driving deep into his side. The sound of steel through flesh was drowned by Seraphine's scream. Kael's knees buckled, yet he clutched the blade that impaled him, dragging himself closer to Alaric. With a last shuddering surge, he wrenched the sword from his body and drove it back into Alaric's chest. Both men staggered. Both men fell. Alaric crashed to the ground, his eyes wide with disbelief as blood poured from the wound. Kael collapsed to his knees, his strength gone, his gaze fixed only on Seraphine. She rushed to him, catching his failing body in her arms. Her tears fell upon his face, mingling with the blood. "No, Kael, stay with me, please. I cannot breathe without you." His lips curved faintly, even as the light dimmed in his eyes. "Then breathe once more, and I will live in that breath." She pressed her lips to his, desperate, clinging, as though her kiss could hold him in this world. But when she pulled away, his chest no longer rose. Silence stretched. The sea thundered below, the gulls cried overhead, and the dawn broke fully across the horizon. Seraphine bent over him, her sobs racking her body. Then, with a strange calm, she lifted his lifeless hand to her cheek. "If he has gone, then I shall follow, for love is not life if lived alone." She rose, her gown soaked in crimson, and turned to the edge of the cliff. The sea below raged, its waves crashing like 1,000 drums against the cliffs. The dawn painted the horizon in gold and crimson, yet to Seraphine it seemed a cruel mockery, the world alight while her heart lay in darkness. Kael's body rested at her feet, his face serene in death, as though freed from all chains of sorrow. She knelt beside him once more, pressing her lips to his forehead, her tears falling like rain upon his skin. Behind her, Alaric's soldiers stood in silence. Their lord lay broken, his lifeblood staining the earth, and none dared step forward. Some looked away, others bowed their heads. For even hardened men of war knew they had witnessed something greater than themselves, a love fierce enough to defy every law of man and heaven. Seraphine rose slowly, her hands trembling, her gaze fixed on the endless horizon. Her voice, though soft, carried clear across the cliff. "Wait for me, beloved. I come." With that, she stepped to the cliff's edge. For a heartbeat, her figure stood framed against the rising sun, fragile, radiant, unbroken. Then, with the grace of a final dance, she leapt. The sea received her, swallowing her into its depths. The waves surged, then stilled, as though keeping her secret. The soldiers remained frozen, no blade raised, no command spoken. At last, one whispered, "So ends Eldermire's lady." But another, older and wiser, shook his head. "No, so begins their tale." And so it did. In the years that followed, the story of Seraphine and Kael spread beyond Eldermire's walls. Minstrels sang of the lady who chose love over chains, and the soldier who gave his life to protect her. Mothers whispered it to children as a warning and a wonder, that love, though sweet, can burn too brightly, leaving ashes behind. Yet some said, on storm-tossed nights, 2 figures could be seen upon the cliffs. A woman in a gown of white, her hand entwined with that of a scarred soldier. Their faces turned always toward the sea, waiting, watching, together at last. Thus their love endured not in life, but in legend. A love forbidden, a love tragic, yet a love eternal. For though their hearts were silenced, the world would remember the names Seraphine and Kael, the lovers of Eldermire, whose passion defied all, and whose fate bound them forever in the shadow of the sea. So it was that love, fierce and unyielding, met its end upon the cliffs of Eldermire. Yet endings are but beginnings told from another side. For though Seraphine and Kael's mortal breaths has ceased, their story did not die. It lives still in the whispers of waves that strike the rocks, in the sigh of wind through hollow corridors of stone. It lives in the trembling voice of every soul who dares to love where love is forbidden, who dares to defy the chains of duty for the call of the heart. Perhaps you too have felt it, that ache, that dangerous longing, the kind that burns hotter than fire, yet leaves only cold behind. Beware it, dear listener, for such love is both gift and curse. It lifts the spirit to heaven and drags it down to ruin. But tell me, if you stood as Seraphine did with a future of chains before you and freedom in one stolen kiss, would you have chosen differently? If you held Kael's hand, knowing it meant death, would you have let go? The world will judge them, as it judges all who stray from the path laid by fate. Some will call them fools, others heroes. Yet the truth lies not in judgment, but in the silence between heartbeats, in that moment when two souls chose each other, though the cost was everything. And now, a final offering to the sea, a song unfinished, yet to be continued, in the ebb and flow of the tide, for there are tales that the ocean keeps, not for her alone, but for all who listen. Hear the last lines sung by Seraphim, a lament for what has been, a prophecy for what shall come again. Weep not for me, my love, though waves may rise and billows fall. Weep not for me, my light, though darkness veil the sun and moon. Our love, a constant, guides my way through crashing wave and foamy spray. My heart, though caged, beats ever free, for love like ours knows not the sea. Beyond the grave, beyond the pain, our spirits leap, our souls shall reign. No chains can bind, no hate shall hold, two hearts as one, forever whole. From Eldermire's edge, they plunged into the deep, hand clasped in hand, their secrets to keep. The waves receded, leaving naught but sand, and whispers borne on air to distant land. What phantom wraith with mournful cry now glides through seas where sunbeams die? With eyes of blue, once filled with light, now veiled in gray, forever out of sight. What spectre pale, with touch so chill, haunts ocean's floor, that lonely, silent rill, where coral tombs in darkness sleep, and sea flowers wither cold and deep? On sunken ships, where fishes glide, do lovers walk, side by side, with lips of red, once soft and warm, now cold and still in ocean's calm. The sea remembers all, the pain, the fear, the whispered vow, the final tear. The sea remembers all, yet will not tell, for in her depths their souls dwell. In swirling foam, their image seen, a ghostly dance. On waves serene, the cliffs of Eldermire, stark and tall, hold memories within their thrall. And in the breeze, a phantom sigh, as Seraphine walks on by and by.